Praise and glory to Yahweh Bahasham, Yahweh Shai Bahasham Ha Raka Kodash. Double honors to our apostle elders, which rule Great Millstone Wow, and Shalom to the hopeful elect of the nation of Israel, Wa Abba Babal. So, something that jumped out to me dealing with this war with America and Iran, which is a lot of theater. They're playing AI generated hip hop music with their Lego videos that they're producing and supposedly sending from Iran to Nero 47. All right, but what popped out to me this whole time is that there's Israelites in Iran. All right. So they're playing like an Iranian AI generated rap, but as you hear the voice, it could pass for a so-called Negro, Latino, or Native American in America. Meaning whoever put this together, they're trying to relate in that way, whether they are ignorantly an actual Israelite or they're trying to register with the Israelites, which hip-hop was a weapon directed towards the Israelites. All right. So rap itself, when you look it up, the birth of hip-hop is widely recognized as occurring on August 11th, 1973, during a house party in the Bronx, New York. All right. And it was a weapon. It was a weapon formed against the Israelites, starting with Abba Bivens, which began to prophesy in 1969 in Harlem. All right. So the Lord gave us a new song, and Esau tried to hide the song with a false song, being the hip hop. Right. And hip hop has went throughout the world. It's in Asia East, Asia West, Europe, Africa, everywhere, right? America, North and South. So it's like a plague that came upon the world to deceive the people, all right, being Israelites. And a lot of people died because of this so-called hip-hop music, all right? But rap, the hip-hop culture has reached to Iran, and this just shows that there's Jake there. All right. So it says Persian Rap-e-Farsi is what it's called, is a vibrant, predominantly underground musical movement in Iran that serves as a major voice for youth dissent and social commentary. Despite facing government bans, because these governments were put in place so that we wouldn't remember ourselves. And so they'll ban you on certain things because Jake sings the songs of Zion. You see, even though we be in Babylon, all right, we sing songs of Zion. It literally just comes out of us. That's why that music is so powerful. When they showed you the movie Sinners. And it's because it's in our DNA. It's in our blood. And not every Israelite's going to look like a so-called Negro, because they showed you the vampire in that movie Sinners, and he was an Irish, and he related to the prayer of Our Father. See? And he said, those words bring me comfort. Meaning the Israelites look like so-called Caucasians. All right? And this reveals it, the salt that is in the Israelite that pours out. All right. We have more salt than the other nations. We're better than the other nations. All right. Look at Jesse Owens. It says studio shutdowns and artists arrests, so they persecuted him. All right. And what they do is they'll establish false prophets, like false performers like 6ix9ine. He was one that openly confessed it, that he's not the best, right? He pretty much bought his seat to serve the elite in their purpose pushing that Sodom and Gomorrah agenda in spiritual Egypt. All right. So all these things were, manipulated by Esau. Though it first started off as a way of pouring our salt out on the earth, which the Lord has spread his word as the rain, right? Through many faucets, right? You got TV shows that are showing you biblical prophecy everywhere. Though right now, this time, no one knows, the whole world doesn't recognize the Israelites, meaning they don't recognize Yahweh Ba'asham Yahushai. See? And that's under the so-called white race and his deception, which has taken over the earth in all its facets. But the elect will not be deceived. All right? And out of us flows living water. That's why the Israelites are going to cleave unto us, and they're going to cleave through the internet. That's how they're able to see us or come across us on the street. But they're going to persecute us where we're not going to be able to teach anymore, bringing forth the prophecy of the famine, which there will be a famine on earth from hearing the word of the Lord. And in that time, it will be great judgment. That's why it's going to happen. It's going to happen because the Lord said this judgment will be without mixture. You're not going to get no mercy. All right. So this is why he sent the prophets of Israel to the Israelites on earth with the word of prophecy to tell you what is to come before it happens, so that you may not be offended. And in fact, that you might repent and be saved if it's ordained, right? Because everything is predestined, preordained. All right. So once again, hip hop was set up to deceive the Israelites. At the same time, the truth was coming out. Starting with Abba Bivens in 1969 in Harlem, he began to preach in the streets. Then King Masha, One West, and then out of One West came our apostle elders, which ruled Great Millstone, and which taught me the truth. All right. So I wanted to get Isaiah, I believe it is 54. So I'm going to start at 16. It says, "Behold, I have created the smith." The smith is the so-called white race, which they weaponize everything against the Israelites, even the other nations. "That bloweth the coals in the fire," which they produce weapons of war. All right. Through fire back in the day being a blacksmith. All right. Now as scientists in the laboratories, they produce atomic weapons, nuclear power. It says, "And that bringeth forth an instrument for his work, which he created the nuclear weapon. And I have created the waster to destroy." The waster is Esau, Aishawa, wasted away. So he created the Edomite to destroy. To destroy who? Israelites. All right? Because of our sin, he was used against us. Verse 17, which now we're repenting. So it says, "No weapon that is formed against thee shall prosper." See, because when we get in trouble, we call upon Yahweh Bahasham Yahushai, and he's in control of everything, the right and the left. All right? It says, "And every tongue that shall rise against thee in judgment thou shalt condemn." Which that's what we're put here. We're the mouth of the Lord, and there's no deceit in us. We just tell you like it is. We tell you the truth, and you want to persecute us for it. Pretty much put us to death. All right, make up laws to try to oppress us. But Yahweh Bahasham Yahushai is the one that fights for us. And he controls even the left hand. Let me show you this video. All right, so I declare the Copyright Act, Section 107, to use this copyright material to educate my people to edify them in the accuracy of the Bible in these last days.
What role in the Middle East again does Israel play in this?
Israel was created as the instrument to bring about the Battle of Armageddon and the fulfillment of prophecy, a war that will be so...
Which is happening right now. Armageddon, it means a mountain of troops. And that's why they're being gathered over there by the small hats, the counterfeits that are in our land. All right. The Edomites, they have set themselves up in that land as being a Jew and are not. Okay. So they are counterfeit and they are Edomite and they're at war with everybody over there, all the other nations, because they are not the real Jew. They're counterfeits. All right. And they're a weapon used against the Israelites. But now that we're repenting, as prophesied we would, the Lord is now moving the Edomite out of the way, off stage, out of heaven.
Terrible, where nuclear weapons will be used so that the American citizens and the other people of the world will get down on their knees and beg for no more war. And what is the answer to that? They're going to be told the only way we can guarantee no more war is if we destroy the sovereignty of nations and we come together as one humanity.
And they're going to make it where you have to have an implantable microchip for buying and selling worldwide, which is the mark of the beast.
Government.
Right.
And I'm telling you, unless the American people wake up and stop it, starting in about 1996, the Battle of Armageddon will become a reality.
He laid out the blueprint for everything we're seeing today. He knew why it had to happen, he knew who was behind the curtain, and he knew what we should expect next.
Read the book of Revelations. Whether you believe in the book or not, read it, because the men who are bringing this about are using it as their script.
This interview was...
Did you hear that? He said, the book of Revelation, the men are moving by the word of the scripture. The left hand gets their commands by the word too, because they do the opposite. All right. They're trying to change prophecy. All right. They're trying to run because they're a fugitive. Esau is a fugitive. All right. He's a vagabond also, which he goes into other people's lands, and he's a thief. So he steals their resources while he's in their lands. He might come in peaceful ways, but then he shows his fangs. He bites them, and they say, "Why'd you bite me?" Right? Because he's a deceptive serpent. That's why you got Christianity, which is a goddamn lie. Democracy, which is a lie. Fiat currency, which is a lie. Right? They're telling you that if you make all this money, you'll be free. There is no freedom here. Look at Mayweather, billionaire, and he's fucking broke. How the fuck you go broke with $1 billion? $1 billion, you're supposed to be making money just having $1 billion. But it's because Esau is in control, the wicked, and his balances are unfair, especially for an Israelite. The Lord put pretty much hatred between the so-called Negro, Latino, and Native American Indian and the so-called white race, which they openly show it, but they have deceived the people of the Israelites to think that the image of God is like them when it is not. All right. The Messiah, the one that came and died on the cross for the Israelites to be free from the wage of sin, starting with the elect, he was resurrected by his father Yahweh. All right, he is described in the Bible as a so-called black man, not a so-called white man. All right, and they know it. He said, read the book of Revelation. In the book of Revelation, it reveals the appearance of Yahweh Shai in the first chapter.
Recorded in 1992. And as you listen, you'll understand why his blueprint still matters today. Because he said it would all unfold exactly like this, down to the smallest detail of the script.
And I get people who still come to me all the time and say, Bill, you're all wrong. It's the Jews. The Jews are subverting the world. Man, it's not the Jews. It's not the Catholics. It's not the blacks. It's these men who belong to the ancient mystery schools, who meet in secret to decide the fate of the world.
And see, so he's a fork-tongued devil himself, which really he was trying to tell the Edomites to stop before their blood got spilled and they went into shackles. If you watch this whole video, pretty much his message to the Edomites, he's like the rich man that had the vision of going into slavery, all right? And he saw Abraham afar off because they're going to be in slavery while we're in heaven, all right? And that heaven is going to be here on earth, all right? We're going to have the heathen as our slaves, and the Edomites, the so-called white race, they're going to be the ones the most farthest away from us because they're the wicked. Even though they're supposed to be our closest relative, all right? Because Jacob and Esau were twin brothers that were born from Isaac, all right? And Esau was rejected, and Jacob was received, given the name Israel. All right. And this is why Esau, his name is Aishawah. He was predestined to be cursed. That's why he has the lack of melanin. That's why he looks the way he looks. That's why they age so badly, right, from the sun, because that's the mark of Cain, which Cain and his people died in the flood, but they came back reincarnated through Noah's son, Shem, down the line, Abraham, Isaac, and Isaac had two sons, Esau and Jacob. And the blessing of Abraham went to Isaac and then to Jacob, not Esau. This is why Esau's doing all this. All right?
They belong to all different races and all different nationalities and all different religions to the public point of view.
Now, they pay everybody. All right, that's why you hear about all this money being moved around amongst these heathen that are confederate with Esau. All right, you got the European Union, which is the beast that rules the world. America is the whore that rides that beast, and their military is NATO. Under them, they have the UN, which fulfills Daniel 2. All right, that they would mingle themselves with the sons of men, being Edomites, the sons of the wicked, the so-called white race, which ruled the world, America and the European. All right, America is the whore that rides the beast, and the European Union, they have NATO, which is the beast. All right, and they have put all these nations in a confederacy against the Israelites, and they have deceptions. They set up false messiahs, false doctrines, false religions, false wars, rumors of wars.
Yeah, but in secret, it's a different story.
He claimed the fate of billions rest in the hands of a small group of people. And their strategy, he said, is simple. Keep us watching the circus so we never look behind the curtain.
At the highest levels of all countries, they all belong to the same club.
They all belong to the same club. Iran is part of UN, one of the first of the founders. You see? So it's all theater. All right? It's all staged to deceive. And the ones they want deceived are the Israelites, which for the most part, they are. That's why you got Jake in the military wanting to go over there and die for a paycheck of fiat currency, wooden nickels. All right, that will bring you no freedom, but just more debt. When you go pay your taxes, you got to pay on how many dollars you had in your possession at that time in that year. And so really a US dollar is nothing but a debt. That's why the banks don't hold it, because it's literally a note of debt from the Federal Reserve, which is Amalekite. All right. So it all goes back to the Amalekites. All right. Which they all have renamed the nations. They moved them around, you know, especially the Israelites. They moved us on slave ships. All right. They put that in public eye because of their pride, but really it's all prophecy condemning them also. All right, and they're all part of the same club, and they're all gonna fail. All right, they're gonna fail to the Israelite. It says, "No weapon." Isaiah 54:17, "No weapon that is formed against thee shall prosper, and every tongue that shall rise against thee in judgment thou shalt condemn. This is the heritage of the servants of Yahweh, and their righteousness is of me, saith Yahweh," and that through Yahweh Shai. All praises and glory to Yahweh Bahasham Yahweh Shai. Bahasham Ha Rakah Kodash, double honors unto our apostle elders which rule great millstone well, and shalom to the elect wa abababal.